Welcome to Ask Caleffi, the podcast that dives into real-life problems that plumbing and HVAC technicians face in the field. We're your hosts from the Caleffi Tech Support Team. I'm Greg Tubbs.
And I'm Dan Furcus. Welcome. We look forward to sharing some stories from our tech calls and using our background and expertise to make your days a little easier.
Hey there, it's been a hot minute since we've been back in the studio to record anything. Here we are going on episode 11.
Yeah, 11 weeks in. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for coming back.
So, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, you know, Greg, I get a ton of calls about zone valves and actuators, in particular end switches.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, it seems to be something that hits hard right around heating season.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Applications using the end switches. I had a contractor the other day that called me, and he was out on site, and it was his third actuator he was replacing in 3 weeks, and he was having that end switch fail.
Boy, yeah, and it's tough to be on the receiving end of that phone call too, because it's a lot of frustration for them, and it doesn't make us look the best, does it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, certainly, you know, in his mind, he was thinking, boy, I need to maybe switch brands because their end switches have issues. And, you know, we had to really dive down deep and sort out what the application was using that end switch to fix the problem. And that's kind of when you and I discussed, it's like, you know what, I think we should really have some time to talk about that and really explain, you know, the right and wrong application and the right and wrong end switch for your applications, because we have a couple different options.
We do. So most of the time when we hear about this, it's usually with the Z111000 or the Z151000.
Yeah, we really do. Those tend to be the two models that you know, in fact, he had a Z151000 actuator, and he was on his third one. So what's unique about that?
Yeah, so we'll dive into the tech specs on both of those valves. So the Z151000, 24 volt motor. It has the reed type end switch in it, and it has terminal blocks.
Yeah, and normally closed
actuator. And then we have the Z111000, which has the same specs, but instead of having the terminal block, the screw heads on it, it's got 2 black and 2 red wires.
Yeah, about 18-inch wires.
Right. So both of them run that same, what we call a reed switch. It's
the micro switch.
Yep. It's a sealed switch to keep out any boiler room contaminants like dust, or if you have some sort of corrosive off-gassing going on in there, it'll protect it.
Sure, yeah, kind of more environmental protection.
Right. So you're protecting that switch from any environmental issues in the mechanical room or wherever it's located. The problem with that switch is it's really not rated for a whole lot of amperage, meaning you cannot pump a lot of amperage through it.
Yeah, that one is, 0.4 amp maximum load.
Yeah, and that's really low.
Yeah, I mean, perfect application for that is going to be tied into a zone relay board, like one of our ZVR boards. Great application where, you know, you don't have a lot of load on the end switch. You're just essentially using it like a dry contact.
Right. And when you go and hook these to anything but that, we're talking an aquastat, even a newer boiler control. And we don't know all the specifics because no manufacturer posts, you know, what kind of inrush current, how many VA their signal circuit gives off.
Right, exactly.
They don't post that information.
Sometimes you have to dig deep to find that.
Really what you end up having to do is do some testing with a meter.
Yeah.
And that takes time and messing around.
Right. So when you see that connected to, you know, the aquastat relay, switching relay, or directly to a boiler, some of the older boilers used fan centers inside.
Right.
You know, those had, you know, too high of a current inrush.
Right. Through their signal circuit.
And that actually was the application that he was using that valve in. He was using it tied right back into an older boiler. And he's like, boy, you know, your end switches are only lasting a week.
Yeah, a week or a couple days.
Yeah, so we talked about that, and it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, with your application and the Inrush on that fan center that you have in that old boiler, it's not going to hold up to that. I mean, that thing has higher than a 0.4 amp Inrush.
Right. And what's funny is you'll get this where they take and tie all the end switches together and bring it back to the aquastat to bring the aquastat on.
Right.
You'll find that it's usually in systems with multiple zones, obviously, and there's only one or maybe two zones that it gives problem with, and one zone is fine.
Yeah, he had 3 zones, and there was one zone in particular that he was having, and he said it was the main zone in the home, so it's the zone that's going to call the most.
Right. Probably the lower level or something like that.
Right.
So that one's on and off all on its own more often than it would call with another zone valve or the other 2 zone valves. So if you were to take that Inrush and bridge it across all 3 valves calling at once, they might survive a few cycles.
Right. Yeah, if they're calling together.
Yep, because then it's going to kind of share the load. But if it's just a single one, that's when we see the problem. It eats the end switch and it's done and over with. It's not going to call the boiler on.
Yeah, sometimes it'll do it the first call.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen that too. We received calls with that.
Sure.
Yeah, what was sad about that is he was there replacing his 3rd actuator before he took time to call us and have the discussion. So, boy, if you see something like that in the field, please give us a call right away because, one, now he's made 3 trips to the job. Customers losing some confidence. He was losing some confidence. And it's like, okay, the problem isn't that the end switch had issues. The problem is it's misapplied.
Right. But a counter guy selling the product doesn't know any better.
Well, they don't know the application.
They don't know the application, and they just assume things, and it's easy to do, right? A contractor comes in, they need a product to do the job. Yep, for all practical purposes, this is going to work. They sell the product, it goes out the door. He has a problem with it.
Well, right, they don't know the application, so they're walking up to the counter, and I need a 24-volt, normally closed Caleffi actuator with an end switch.
Right.
Well, that's what he got.
Right. So we know the problem. We kind of alluded to some of the fixes for it. What are some of the things that you like to tell guys to do?
Well, one is you look at the actuator that we offer with that high current end switch. I mean, we didn't talk a lot about that, but we have another actuator available. It's our Z111900.
Right.
It's going to be the same 24-volt, normally closed actuator, but it has the high current end switch in it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, that's one option. The only issue that I might see with that is the end switch in that high current model. That guy's rated for a quarter, so 0.25 amps all the way to 5 amps. So you can power a pump with that thing if you had to. The only issue is if you're hooking it to a low current system, you got to worry about them contacts chattering. So if the Inrush is okay at, we'll say 0.3 amps, but then it drops down to, we'll say 0.15 or something like that, the contacts start to chatter. And when they chatter, they start to pit. When they pit, that's when you got to worry about them contacts insulating.
Right.
So again, you got to kind of keep an eye on your application. If you want to use the Z111 or the Z151 actuators, we're going to tell you, look, you really should hook these guys up to a ZVR relay or, a comparable relay panel. And I know that, it's making things more complicated, but it really isn't. It's making it a lot easier to troubleshoot, and it's a lot nicer and neater install when it's all said and done.
You're right. Absolutely. And a couple other benefits with that is, you start trying, think about out there, we've all been out on the job site. We've all installed multiple zone valves, and now you're trying to wire them together and pair up end switches and tie them back to a boiler. And, you end up with this clump of wire nuts somewhere.
Right.
That someday you're going to have to troubleshoot because you'll have an issue.
Right.
With our relay board, it's very simple. You can use the low current or the micro switch So grab the standard actuator you're going to find stocked at any supplier. Tie a CVR panel in with it. It's very easy to sort out your thermostats to the zone valves, the transformers built in, and then you have one end switch going back to your boiler. So, or I shouldn't say end switch, one set of dry contacts going back to turn your boiler on, and that has a higher amp load rating on that relay. So you're protected whether the boiler is high current or low current, or higher or lower inrush.
Absolutely. Because you're just running through that dry contact.
Right. So then the other advantage is warranty.
Right.
So all of our actuators come with a 3-year warranty. Our ZVR panels come with a 3-year warranty. When you install them together, you can give your customer a 5-year warranty on everything.
Yeah, and that's a feather in everybody's cap. Everybody looks like a winner there.
Right, because now you're going to have a system that is married together and matched properly, and a longer warranty.
Sure. And the other thing I want to touch on is going back to the Z111-900, the high current switch model. Not a lot of suppliers stock it. So I'll give guys that number as an option because they don't want to mess around with either doing a zone panel, or they don't want to add an isolation relay in there. We didn't really discuss that much either, but
yeah, it's another option. Get around,
but it's more work.
Right.
It's more wire nuts and spade connectors and more wire and more junk.
Another relay and
it doesn't look as nice. So, but you're going to go to that supply house after you've talked to one of us and say, yeah, I need this actuator. The guy says it'll work. Yeah, we don't have that. They don't. Nobody stocks it because nobody understands the applications as good as you will in the field after you go through these problems.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get that a lot where the supplier doesn't stock it. And, part of that is, I think them knowing and understanding it.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, the best case scenario with the Z111 or the Z151 actuators is to wire them in with a ZVR relay.
Yes.
Troubleshooting, nice, neat, clean job when it's all said and done.
You have your transformer there. It's sized properly.
Everything's ready to go.
Yeah. It doesn't really get any easier than that. You can power your thermostats off it if you need to.
Right. Yeah, I think we pretty well covered it. I mean,
yeah, it's a hot topic. So, I think it was, good that we decided to jump in and talk about that.
Absolutely.
So what do you want to come back and talk about next week?
Well, I think choosing the correct mixing valve for point of distribution would be a good topic to talk about.
I think that's a great topic.
All right. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. If you ever need help,
please feel free to contact our tech support team anytime at techsupport.us@caleffi.com.
Or call us during our business hours at 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Central Time at 414-238-2360.